Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited for.
This is the greatest show!
And now, here's your host, Clint Arthur.
All right, everybody. This is Clint Arthur, and welcome to the greatest show of all time, right here on 77 WABC Radio in New York City. Yeah. Dr. Drew TGSOAT! That's right there.
Please don't do that.
Oh, no,
There's
no.
nowhere for me to go but down if this is where we start.
Yeah, we will get you a handheld microphone.
I love that.
Yes. But first, I want to give you this award. Okay. This is the Celebrity Entrepreneurs Guild Inspiration Award. Previous recipients have included Suzanne Summers, Caitlyn Jenner, Martha Stewart, and this one is for you.
Thank you, sir.
You are an inspiration to us all. Thank you, sir. You're what it's all about, man. How do you become Dr. Drew? That's my opening
Let's
question.
talk about that.
How do you become Dr. Drew?
So I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you guys. And first of all, it is a deep privilege to be here. Thank you for asking me to be here. I've been looking at some of the work you guys are doing. It is amazing. So I'm hoping really just to tell you my story and then have you apply your version of what I'm about to tell you. I usually start these kinds of conversations with, don't quit your day job. No matter what you're doing, remain a physician, keep doing your work. That's actually our value in the media, is this discipline. And we need to be more present in the media. When I started doing this, I kept saying, oh my God, there's so many attorneys out there, and we do not need to hear from them anymore. We need to hear, the physician sensibility needs to be stamped, and God knows no more so than now, though things have gotten weird, but they need to hear our instincts and our sensibilities. In a different world, I think it would have been just us talking about it had it not sort of skyrocketed into this political realm it's been in, meaning the COVID story. Be that as it may, the first thing I'll tell you my story in just a second, but I also want to get all this stuff out that I was thinking that I would hope to share with you guys. And that is be super clear on what you're attempting to do. And you can be doing more than one thing, that is fine. But be clear, am I trying to build a practice? Am I trying to be a physician in media on all platforms and just do that as part of my career or the sole focus of my career? Am I looking to just use my sensibilities and use the platforms of media to do good as just another element of how I'm practicing my craft? To have a sort of a clear idea of where you're going with this. Is this something, am I parroting things you say, or this is stuff
You're doing great.
So I got into this in 1983 by accident. I did not have any intention. If you had told me, even what I was doing like in the 90s, if you had told me in the 80s I was doing that or that's what I'd be doing, first of all, I wouldn't know what you were talking about. And secondly, I'd be like, well, that's totally insane. That would not be what I'm doing. I love practicing medicine. I had sort of multiple jobs when internists can do multiple jobs. I had a critical care practice. I had an acute hospital practice. I had an outpatient medical practice. I ran medical services in a psychiatric hospital, and that kind of morphed into running addiction services. So I sort of had two parallel paths going. One was general medicine, both inpatient and out, and the other ended up being addiction medicine. Again, accident. There was no training in addiction medicine back when I sort of found my way into it. It was really just because I got interested in, again, late 80s, the idea that you could make a clinical discipline out of a drug withdrawal or alcohol withdrawal. I was working in a county hospital, seeing tons of heroin addicts and alcoholics, and watching the residents, or even as myself as a resident, the process of withdrawing was absolutely haphazard. I was moonlighting in a psychiatric hospital. There was a family practitioner there at the time who was a recovering guy, made a clinical discipline out of it, and I thought, oh man, I got to learn this and do it. And so I got very good at that. people were asking me to see lots of drug addicts then. I still didn't know really anything about addiction. And sort of, long story, I got involved deeply into that. And that's been a great thing. All along, media was sitting there. So in 1983, I lived in a condominium very near a radio station. And that radio station became super popular overnight in Los Angeles. No one had ever heard of it. It was just in a little crap hole above a dentist office, essentially. But overnight, this thing got very popular. And so people that literally lived in and around my building were beginning to socialize with these people at this radio station. They met people, they talked, they were doing a show in the middle of the night. They called me and they described this show in the middle of the night. It was Loveline, 1983, 2 disc jockeys just opening the phone lines. And they said, we want you, and I was a 4th-year medical student at the time, mind you. And they just said, look, we want to do a segment called Ask a Surgeon. You'll use big words. It'll be hysterical. Relax. And I was like, why would you ask me to do that even? But I thought, all right, I'll sort of see what's going on, what this is. Went up there, first night with my infectious disease and gynecology textbooks. It was hysterical. And one of the things that was motivating me to go in was one Anthony Fauci in 1984 was chanting and telling young physicians, you have to go out and educate about this thing we had just started calling AIDS. We just discovered the causative agent, HTLV3, if you remember that whole rhetoric. And there's going to be 10 million dead. There are going to be 10 million dead. He kept saying that. You got to go out. You got to talk about this. There are going to be 10 million dead. And so I took it very seriously. And particularly when I went up there and was hearing just these unbelievable questions being presented to FM disc jockeys in the middle of the night, I thought, oh my God, this is where they're coming for their health information. Now, this is the other part of the story, which is I just had a very powerful instinct it was the right thing to do. But that was a hard thing to see at a time when, as far as the American culture was concerned generally, young adults, adolescents were not having sex. So why would you talk to them about sexuality and HIV? They weren't having sex. Condoms, if you know this history, were behind the counter with the antihypertensive medications. So you'd have to ask the pharmacist to bring it forward, which the average 17-year-old is not doing. So we started talking about safe sex before the term had even been invented yet. Because I was 24 years old. I know what's going on here. We got to stop. We got to talk to them about this. And I had a sense that if I could just push the information through in this, it was a crazy environment. I mean, they were just talking about everything. And I just thought, they're getting listeners. And so this was an epiphany I had early on, and this is worthy of remembering, which is that the priorities of people that create media is very different than our priorities. And that has to be okay to you because they know how to capture eyes and ears. You, as a physician, know what people need to hear. They know what they want to hear. You know what they need to hear. So you have to find a way to insert yourself into vehicles that people that create media are creating. You can't just, I was very reserved at the beginning. I really was very nervous about all this. That's where Dr. Drew came from. I didn't want anybody to know I was doing this. I didn't say Dr. Pinsky. I said, just call me this, Dr. Drew. And I did it for 10 years after that, one night a week. I thought I was doing community service. It was interesting and different and met a lot of fun people. Met my wife as a result. She was working at the radio station. But I did not think I was a radio person. And to make matters worse, because it was considered so peculiar to have particularly somebody in training. Obviously, I was a resident during, very quickly I was into my residency, and so I was, wasn't like I was just a medical student on the radio. That passed quickly. But my residency director found out about it because it had a following, and the LA Times did an article about it. And I was called into the director's office. I was at the end of my internship. He had this article laid out in front of him and started screaming at me.
Seriously?
What's wrong with you? There's something wrong with you. Something's wrong. And he was screaming, he was spitting. I remember the spit was hitting me in the face. He was screaming so much.
And you're like, could you please wear a mask for the droplets? Come on.
And I thought, oh my God, maybe my instinct that this was the right thing to do is wrong. Maybe this is something wrong with me. I certainly don't want to lose my residency position. And so I stopped for 6 months. And then in that 6 month period, the whole thing about physicians talking about HIV and AIDS exploded. And it became a mandate. Doctors need to get out there and talk about it. This was Fauci's thing had sort of caught fire at that point. And so I kind of went back and I thought, I bet I'm going to be okay now. In my senior year of residency, he ran into me in the hall. First of all, 2 weeks after he yelled at me, he met me in the cafeteria and said, look, I'm sorry, I lost my cool, but you're going to ruin your career. This is the worst thing you could do. This is a terrible thing for your career. And I thought, okay.
You've been doing Loveline for 10 years.
No. At that point, I've been doing it for 3 years.
3 years.
2 years. 2
Were
years.
you making money from that?
No. I didn't make money till 10 years later. That's another part of the story.
Okay.
Don't expect to make money. Don't have that expectation. If that happens, it's a blessing.
Don't expect to make money from doing media.
From doing media. It can happen, but don't expect it.
What I say is, I don't get paid to go on TV, but I make a lot of money because I go on TV.
You can sell books, right. And you listen, when you're a guest on a news show, you are paid actually nothing. You're paid zero, although the world goes, oh, you're selling out to CNN, you're selling out to, even though you get paid zero. So there's that. I mean, social media is the latest thing I'm trying to have to contend with. But so I'm 2 years in, I stop for 6 months, now I'm a senior resident, and the guy runs into me in the hall and goes, hey, you still doing that radio show? He goes, I'll tell you what, I'll do it now. You step aside, I'll do it. And I was like, oh, you. Same guy made me his chief resident 4 months later. He had clearly no recollection of this traumatic experience that I had when I was an intern. So I kept going. So follow your instincts. That's the one lesson here, particularly if you're younger. I don't doubt 24-year-olds' instincts. They see stuff we can't see, and evidently he couldn't see what I could see at that point. In terms of getting a job on the radio, that happened many years later. I was still doing it one night a week, All of a sudden, our radio station became aware that a third of the radio stations in Los Angeles were tuned to this show on Sunday night that we were doing. So he went, oh my God, we got to put this on 5 nights a week. And I was like, well, I'm a severe workaholic. I was, struggling to get home by 10 o'clock at night every day. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to put on 5 nights. How am I going to do that? I didn't know what, I didn't know what, but I thought, all right, I'll try to do this. So that week that they did a little experiment, whether it works 5 nights a week, was the week my wife Susan got pregnant with triplets. And she said, wisely, no more community service. If you are going out 5 nights a week, you are getting paid. So I went in hat in hand and got $50 a show for doing radio that was killing it in Los Angeles. Wow. I didn't know. What did I know? It was, and the whole while, and my until about 2010, my general note was, please leave me alone to practice medicine. I'll do this thing, but it's like I'm stepping into a capsule, a piece of my life that's separate from my daily life.
2010?
That's how I thought about it.
Oh my God.
That's how I thought about it.
And that began in what year?
83.
Till 2010, you didn't get it?
I was doing stuff, but I was still like, I'm a doctor and I'm doing media. In 2010, I had a talk show, I had a show here at HLN, I had a daytime talk show, I had the radio show at night, we were doing Celebrity Rehab, and I thought, all right, I have to look in the mirror and go, okay, you are officially doing media. Officially. Officially, you don't have to resist this anymore. It's okay. You've practiced medicine for 30 years, you've done this thing, you can start to focus on media and that will be okay for you. So that was 2010. And so I've sort of been more focused on that and shrunk my remaining pieces of my practice and things to just an outpatient practice and have been focusing on media since 2010. But Loveline, became this thing on the radio, and then some television producers showed up. This is the other piece. And they said, well, we're going to make a TV show. And I was like, well, What's that? How do you do that? I don't have any idea what you're talking about, but I'll explore that. That'd be interesting. Let's see if I can take that and make it good and make it worthwhile and get information out in a way that, because I'd learned that people that know how to create television media, they create things that people watch, and if they've got the eyeballs, I've so far been able to insert myself in to give the information I want to give.
Those TV people, they're pretty good at like creating stuff that people want, or else they go out of business.
Correct.
Right?
That's their job. They also will manipulate you to do things they want you to do. You have to be very, very, very careful that you're not ending up, you have to understand where that line is exquisitely carefully, especially in the world of reality shows and things like that, because it's confusing. You go in, you think, okay, I'm going to help this person, and all of a sudden you have producers creating chaos and plying them with alcohol and God knows what else. You can get underwater pretty quick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is any downside to getting more famous?
These days, there's lots of it. I'm in a shitstorm every 5 days. And I'm just like, hey guys, I'm just out here trying to do good. I'm trying to help. And in this world, it's, particularly the last 3 or 4 years, it is extremely unpleasant. I look at Twitter like this every morning. Like, what am I going to see now that I did or said or, And I mean, be careful what you wish for, I would say. That's in that category.
Yeah. How about your advice to people who want to get invited back on Fox Los Angeles over and over and over? How do you do that?
So show up, be on time, be affable, look right, and make the host look good. That's very, very important. People don't think about that. You're there to make mostly, particularly if it's a talk show. If it's a talk show, make the host look good. Make the producer look good. And then deliver. All you got to do is deliver. If you deliver, you will be asked back. And by deliver, you're getting plenty of training on this. It's look a certain way, pay attention to certain stuff, short, quick, get to it, leave them wanting more. And engage the host. Late in recent years, I've been doing something that I particularly avoided, which is I think now you have to show emotion. I think before I was just trying to like, hey, I'll laugh along with you, but I'm trying to be, keep my composure. Now when I go in angry, it works better.
Good. Have you ever been hacked?
Hacked on the computer?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, what happened?
Everyone in my world, my contact list got emails or, I've been hacked a number of times. Yeah.
Number of times?
Yeah. Well,
all right.
Badly 3 or 4 times. And one time it was with a email that said I was stuck in Cyprus and I need $500. And literally very smart people were like, and people I'd spoken to 48 hours before, like, hey man, I'm ready to help you out. What can I do? It's like, what? How? Well, that's how that stuff works. That's why they're able to do it. They keep doing it. So the television came, and that was MTV Loveline, and that went on for about 6 seasons. And I was still very, very resistant to paying attention to now the television part. I really thought radio, I get what radio is, and radio, you've got to remember, radio was an extremely powerful medium through the 60s, 70s, and 80s particularly. And my little naive idea was, hey, if this sex, drug, and rock and roll radio has had such a negative influence on the health and well-being of young people, maybe by riding with them, I can steer it back. And and I had a sense of what I was doing there. It's since then people have studied health messaging. It's actually important to remember this, and they're blowing it completely around COVID. Here's what you need: narrative. So I was like, just like we learned in medical school. What do? We study cases. So a call was a case. I was explicating the cases. There was a little humor, so there was a related and a relatable source. So the relatable source is the caller, another adolescent or young adult. The explication was what I wanted to, that was what I thought was important. The narrative was the person's story and their interaction with us, And then the humor on top of that made it all more digestible. So narrative, relatable source, humor, these are the things. Have you guys seen the mask video by the Party Bros? Chad Goes Deep, Chad Kroger, a surfer from San Clemente. They went out into Huntington Beach and they tried to hand out free masks. I suggest you look it up. It's the best health messaging in the entire pandemic, because people behaved insanely, and these kids were just like, "Hey man, what's going on? Where'd you learn that?" The internet, while I was high on acid. So people, the narratives were there, the humor was there. They exposed themselves for their hypocrisy, and it lowered the temperature on the willingness to wear masks. And people are like, "Oh, I don't want to be those idiots. I'll wear a mask." It was perfect. So the TV comes along, and that was a big, gigantic learning curve for me. I remember. My wife, who understands these things, kept going, "Watch Diane Farr. Watch how she looks at the camera. Watch how she does her makeup." I'm like, I can't be, I'm a doctor. I can't be bothered with that stuff. Please, no. And then one night she sits me down and she goes, "Look at this. Look at you, look at her." I was like, "Oh, got it. I better pay attention. It does matter." So that was in the 90s now. And God, what happened after that? So I sort of went back to radio and got more involved with doing other sorts of media outlets, like a lot of CNN. I was doing a lot of CNN at that time.
Did you have a mentor who helped you in any way or made things happen for you?
But this is another important piece, is I had a manager.
Hey, it's time for my favorite part of the show. It's the show within the show. The home repair section of the show with homerepair.com CEO Tony Silva. Tony, what kind of goodness you got on tap for the people in New York City today?
Hey, Clint, today is a special day. I'm going to share some stuff that's really, it's been on my heart pretty strong lately. And it's really, Clint, I was on a national media tour recently with the 6 mistakes to avoid if your home is damaged in a storm, right? I was asked to come across the country to producers, major networks everywhere to share this knowledge. And, something's happening right here in the Northeast that happened recently. It was actually early July that a lot of people don't know about. In Hasbrook Heights, Hackensack, New Jersey, literally right across the river, there's some stuff that happened that I'm literally shouting from the mountaintops across the country to help educate people and help them be able to, take advantage of a situation if necessary, but also take care of business if something happened. And literally, it happened right here in a big way across the East Coast. And so today I just thought, normally I kind of play this down. I mean, it is my business, right? Home repair, it's what I do. I specialize in storm damage restoration. But this time, it hit home, man. It's right here. And it's this happens every year whenever some major event happened. It didn't matter whether it was Superstorm Sandy or what it was. But this happened right here. And it's just it's the same thing that happens every year. There's skepticism. Nothing happened. I don't see anything wrong with my roof, Clint. Everything looks okay. But the reality is there's a major deal. And, I know this. You know this. Last year alone, my company helped over 1,000 people identify that they had serious storm damage to their home, that they had no idea existed, and they literally hit the home improvement lottery because they worked with my team to document the damage, work with their insurance company, and get the stuff fixed. It's a big deal. And I just thought, like I said, there's nothing wrong with how I share, keeping your refrigerator energy efficient and keeping the fans clean in your bathroom and all that stuff. It's really good. But this is a really big deal because it's October and winter's coming and stuff happened. Thunderstorms happened. I felt like I just needed to really get to the core of the deal and say, look, this is a serious issue. Believe it or not, thousands of people realize it. And I want to share with the audience how to find out what happened, if anything happened, and how to get your repairs covered if anything happened. It's probably going to take a few segments, so hopefully visitors will return and hear my 6 mistakes to avoid if your home is damaged in a storm that literally I have been talking across the country about. I mean, before COVID, literally, I had bookings for most of this year already, and it hasn't stopped. I mean, I have executive producers all over the country wanting me on their show as soon as in-person studio appearances are allowed again, but I can't go, So
what's the first mistake if your home is damaged in a storm?
The first mistake is having your home inspected by a professional that specializes in storm damage restoration. That's the first mistake to avoid, because here's the thing, Clint. It only takes a wind speed of 58 miles an hour or a hailstone the size of a quarter to damage your property. I'm not talking about a few $100s in damage. I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars in damage. And a professional that specializes in this kind of work, literally, if you called them, they can pull up so many reports to know what happened at your home any day of the week for the past 5 years. Wind over 58 miles an hour, hailstones larger than the size of a quarter. What happened at your home, right? The forensics of it all. I used to tell people after Superstorm Sandy, look, when you call us to come out to look at your house, it's literally like CSI Stewartsville, New Jersey just showed up on site, because we're going to look at all the data. We're going to see what happened. Which direction was the wind blowing? We know the leeward slopes, the leeward slopes, the windward slopes, where to look and how to identify if there's a problem.
Does it cost a lot of money to call a storm repair specialist like you?
It costs nothing, because look, I know if you call me, right, I'm going to do my homework like you would expect to do. It's almost like if you were to hire an attorney on a contingency, right? I'm going to do my homework. We're going to know what happened at your property. We're going to come and inspect. We're going to look in places you wouldn't think to look. Why? Because we're smart about it, right? We know which direction the wind blew at your house at what day. We know what size damage happened, and we look in the spots that we know we're going to find it, right? And mark it up, and we take pictures.
If I'm correct, you specialize in making sure that insurance companies pay full value to repair storm damaged homes.
100%. Here's the thing. One of the greatest things I used to tell people when I would first start hiring for our company is like, there is no greater feeling in construction. And I've been doing this for a long time, more than 30 years, right? I've repaired more than 17,000 homes. I'm telling you, in construction, there is no greater feeling than after, unfortunately, we have had to do battle with an insurance company for months, sometimes years, to prove something happened and for them to finally pay out what they need to pay. And this customer gets $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in renovations that they're owed, by the way. You feel like Superman. And they're so excited. I mean, the raving fans. I used to tell people too, look, nothing in life is free, right? You're not getting a free roof. You're not getting free siding. You're not getting any of that stuff for free, right? You already paid for it. You paid for it every single month when you made your mortgage payment, and a portion of that went to your homeowner's insurance policy. It's a piggy bank. You've been paying into it and paying into it and paying into it, and now it's time to make a withdrawal. If something happens, it's your money. We help you go get the money you've been depositing to make your house whole again, because you know what happens if you don't, Clint? What happens if you don't is your house ends up having a leak, stuff starts blowing apart. You think, I don't know what happened. Everything was fine, and then some shingles fell in the backyard. Look, it's okay. Our listeners, they're normal people. Look, I met Ice-T at Carnegie Hall, and the crazy thing about it is it's like Ice is like, I don't even know what kind of a roof I have. Right?
Tony,
it's okay.
They're going to have to tune in next week for more of these 6 mistakes. What's the number to call if they think they might have had some storm damage on their home?
877-RED-HOUSE.
Or go to homerepair.com and make sure you tell them you heard Tony Silva on The Greatest Show of All Time. More next week with Tony Silva. Thanks, Tony. Now that's going to wrap up this episode of The Greatest Show of All Time. We'll be back next Sunday night at 9:30 p.m. Meanwhile, I am Clint Arthur, and thanks for tuning in to The Greatest Show of All Time.
The Greatest Show of All Time.